Hello. I wanted to talk about the One Belt, One Road and China's policy to greatly expand its export industry, which will further perpetuate globalization, which some people would argue is a good thing, despite the disreputable reputation of the Chinese Communist Party. There are a few points I wanted to make, a few fun points to start with. Uh, Give me a second here. It's not that easy to remember all this information exactly, statistics and stuff like that. But I wanted to bring these up because these are important. Um, I Googled it, okay? What's the distance between Hong Kong and China? Now, you'd figure they'd pick the closest Chinese city in the province to Hong Kong, but they don't for some reason. So when you Google that, it says it's 1,787 kilometers. And yet Shenzhen is right there in whatever the hell province it is in the Guangdong province. They all have stupid names, if you ask my opinion. Anyway, and that is much closer at about 27 uh, kilometers away. Yeah, just over 27 kilometers away. And this is keeping, a realistic look at things and going, well, is Wikipedia telling the truth? Is Google telling the truth? Does Facebook tell the truth? Does any of these media outlets tell the truth? Does the television tell the truth? And you start to go, no, it does not. Would they lie about this? Probably not, unless they had a reason. But if they had a reason, they most certainly would. And obviously people who travel there are going to understand this a whole lot better, but it is strange that when they say Hong Kong, the distance from to China, they say 1,787 kilometers. And I don't understand what the point that is. I have made the point in other videos that, Hong Kong really does have to listen to what the Chinese Communist Party has to say. And it's worth noting that the British wanted to leave long before 97, um, but the people of Hong Kong didn't want the British to leave necessarily because obviously the upgrade of not just WMDs, but conventional cannon and all that had improved significantly in the last 100 years. So it wasn't of military strategic value anymore, or not the same kind anyway. Uh, they're more of middlemen, and I anticipate that there's so much arguing going on between uh, all of these global regional powers that one would have to take schooling for many years to completely understand it. And to be honest with you, I really don't care for the region. So it's an effort I don't feel like investing. Okay, so that was a point I wanted to make about Hong Kong, and the closest Chinese um, under the China Communist Party leadership city is only 27 kilometers away. So more than close enough for any WMD to be let off. And not only that, they don't even have to tell the local populace because that would ruin the surprise. And that goes for the people of Shenzhen as well. They don't need intercontinental ballistic missiles. And that's not even the only WMD type they have. They can do all sorts of things, that are, uh, absolutely preposterous for people who live on this side of the continent because we simply don't have to worry about those kind of problems. Hopefully, anyway. If we ever do, it's going to happen in a damned hurry, and people's opinions are going to change very, very fast. Um, anyway, this video was going to be about the one road, one belt, or is it one belt, one road? Whatever, same difference. This is the English word, the English term for it, which is not the word they use. That's our best explanation as to what they're trying to talk about. And when you watch any video on YouTube, primarily what they talk about is the shipping routes, which would go through parts of Asia and end up through the Suez Canal, and the land road, which would go through Asia Minor, make a pit stop in Moscow, and head eastward into Eastern Europe. That's ideally what the Western powers would want, because, there is a global demand for Chinese goods, as shitty as they are. People still want bobbleheads. They still want plastic combs. Um, they still want camera stands. They still want everything that is basically made there. And a lot of people in Eastern European countries do not have access to that. They are very, very poor countries. And this is a bit of a gamble, because if the Chinese Communist Party builds anything anywhere, they claim sovereign right through what they call the debt trap. There's many videos. I recommend China Uncensored. They're very good at explaining this sort of thing. However, the point I'm going to get to, China Uncensored, as far as I know, has not talked about it at all. And that would be the lifting of sanctions from the Chinese export companies. And I'm not just talking about biological hazards and all that other sort of stuff, and basically the garbage we send them that they'd like to send back to us. Not talking about that at all. I'm talking about what is the most cost effective way of doing things? What is simpler than building all these roads through very poor Eastern European countries or poor Asian minor countries, and to have a shipping route past Djibouti and head northward, um, where they simply do not have the kind of money that the American government has, and the Western allies. And that would be the lifting of sanctions, as far as a direct route from Chinese manufacturers to the western coast of North America. Um, I'm not exactly sure what the shipping routes are, but it is not, they're not doing it cost effectively the way they are, and there's reasons for that. The neighboring countries of Taiwan, and I do recognize Taiwan as its own country. Japan, although Japan itself, even its most southern, I don't know if you call it a city or what you call it, but just give me a second here. It's not Fukuoka, it was something else. And we're not even talking about the disputed islands here of the Senkaku. Not yet, anyway. Give me a second here. Dig up the information. Okay, so the closest distance from Taipei, which is in Taiwan, northern reach city, to the southern part of the Japanese mainland, or close enough, is Kagoshima. And you'd have to be blind, deaf, and stupid not to think that that wasn't under complete Japanese control. And as far as the disputed islands go, that in itself, it is uninhabited. But does it have weapons capabilities, military bases, installations? Absolutely. Is those territorial waters between South Korea, Taiwan, and Japan heavily guarded, uh, crawling with submarines? A lot of people go, well, the Japanese army was disbanded after the loss in World War II. And it was for a long time because it wasn't necessary for them to have it. But to say they have full control of their navy would be a not accurate statement. But the thing is, there most certainly is a submarine fleet constantly on patrol there. Because the Chinese Communist Party wishes to conquer the world. This is basically the negotiated version of events. They don't want to build a road to help out Eastern Europeans, especially if there's not much to gain, and they have to go through hostile terrain to do that. They're right near Israel, which is a very paranoid, aggressive country. They're not too far from Iran. They're also very hostile, very aggressive, not in the same way, but very much so. They have to go through Moscow, according to the version of the One Road, One Belt that we're used to hearing, which would be Russia. They would have no jurisdiction over there. Political sway, perhaps, but no real jurisdiction. Are they really interested in that? Or would they rather muscle their way through these disputed islands, as they claim, and create a faster shipping route for their goods to the western coast of North America? I was surprised that there were 5 American ports that outranked the port of Vancouver, Fraser. Uh, in fact, I believe they are 47th of 50 of the largest ports, most busy ports in the world, and that doesn't necessarily mean everything's from Hong Kong, but yet, or from China, but a lot of it is. But yeah, there are 5 American cities that have more activity from Asia than that. I was surprised to learn that, if that's in any way true. Uh, I remain skeptical, but that's my opinion. I can't exactly back it up. Um, but yeah, if the Chinese Communist Party had the military muscle and the ability to influence the American government and by proxy the Canadian government into accepting their goods and it, lifting these sanctions, because that's basically like a sanction. Basically what it is them telling you you have to agree to certain terms, or we're going to go do something, or they're going to go do something as a penalty for them doing something before that they didn't like. Sanctions can mean a wide range of things, and it's not always the United States that puts sanctions on everything. Well, actually, technically it is, because all your base are belonged to us. So when Japan lost World War II, all of Japan belonged to the United States. They create this masquerade, of them ruling their own country, and they do. But when you look at Japan, do you think their ambitions of expanding their territory and global influence, do you think that sort of, they threw it, swept it up in the dustpan and went, well, it didn't work out, we'll go on to something else? You'd have to be a complete fucking retard to believe that. But anyway, there are people who do believe that. And yes, they're in control of their little tiny island in front of people. So, that's all part of the art of deception so that people don't know nothing. Uh, but, if America's ever pissed off with Japan, Japan's the one who loses out because they don't have the resources. They have the political and social connections, not because their neighbors like them, but because they're uniting against the current threat to world stability, which is the Chinese Communist Party. And that's more than simply my opinion. That's the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. And the thing is becoming more and more obvious that, in particular, Vancouver, BC, because of the shipping roads, and it's simply the shortest distance between the Chinese Communist Party and North America. But as a was gonna say there's roadblocks in the way, and entire armies. And the thing is, you know, they knew, uh, the South Koreans, the Japanese, the Taiwanese, they knew you can't ever take your eyes off of them, because the second you do, they will capitalize. The Americans, quite often have been caught with their pants down. Same thing with the Russians. As fierce of armies as they are, they have been caught with their pants down, and it's friggin' embarrassing and dangerous when that happens. And countries like China will capitalize on any mistakes of that nature. They simply will, because they do not sleep. Uh, and that is the only thing they are focused on. And people don't understand that. People don't understand that, in the blink of an eye, everything can change. And, I don't think a lot of people psychologically are prepared for it. I mean, there's not much you could do to be psychologically prepared for it. It'll simply happen. But despite that, it's one of those things people go, "Ooh, you ain't supposed to talk about that. If you talk about that, even if it's true, that means you're a racist." And it's like, but what if I hate them too? Does that help? That's not nice. I mean, look at it from this perspective. You know, supposing, you know, someone arrives from Hong Kong, tries to make the best living they can, and lives in Vancouver or Seattle. There's a lot of them in Seattle too. Um, and, wants to make a better living for themselves. They do have to look back at Hong Kong and the fact that it's actually a shithole. And Donald Trump's getting a lot of shit for saying that about some African countries, even though it's true. Oh, you can't say that out loud because you can't. I mean, there's all kinds of heinous things going on in the world, but you can't call Haiti a shithole. Anyway, I'm going to call Hong Kong a shithole because it friggin' well is. There's no, that's, anyone saying otherwise is putting lipstick on a pig, as some might say. But it's intimidating going, basically they're slaves, a lot of people that live there. And you start to think, well, supposing my luck was different, supposing, you take a look at some of these here called slaves, and they are slaves who work, toil away, doing, pitiful jobs for even more pitiful amounts of money simply to survive. And you turn around, you look at him and go, "Well, gee whiz, that guy kind of looks like me. Oh, gee whiz, if I wasn't in such a good situation, that could have been me." And you start thinking things like that, and then you think of the slave masters that control them, and they go, "Would they have any moral qualms about me being in, like a Bangladesh slave factory, sweatshop? Would they really?" And it's like, no. And, like, the Western powers, they can't look bad by making a big fuss over essentially someone who's, because we're all very low on the food chain. Doesn't matter who you are, man. Uh, you could be, I don't know, a district manager or anything like that, and you'd be still very minute on the scale of the rat's asses that they give, on, whatever happens to you over there should, you go down the wrong road. And I don't mean anything by that, but I mean, like, if bad luck happens, they ain't gonna even mention you. They vaguely mention some people who have been detained in China and actually are going to be executed and things like that. And they always say, "Oh, it's like one or two people," and it's like, "Oh, what if it's hundreds, thousands of Canadians?" It's all hush hush, of course, but yeah, that's kind of intimidating. And you're surrounded by compulsive liars on the subject. And, it's all like, I laugh it off and go, "Well, you try your stupid, pathetic psychology on me, and it's simply not going to work." Um, However, it does work on people, on some people, and they're stupid enough to actually go over there. And, I go, what can I do? Because obviously, there are other people who have got their business ties in there. There are other people from that country, Hong Kong and others, and they don't like the idea that somebody is bad rapping their country even though they deserve it. And we're supposed to pretend this evil in the world doesn't exist because we live, a more comfortable lifestyle over here. And it's like, I'm not going to pretend that big hideous monster over on the other side of the fucking Pacific doesn't exist, okay? You go on ahead and do that. I'm not going to do that. And anyone who wants to listen to me can do that. Um, because, you know, in a way, we're no further off than Roman society. I've insulted the Western empires by still comparing us to the Roman history. We're a bit more civilized in some ways. If you go downtown east side at 2 a.m. in the morning, you'll see how real civilized fucking Western civilization is. Not only that, but like the command of the English language is actually many people do not possess that talent. When people tell them things, they have a tendency to believe them, even if it's a complete load of crap. And like I said earlier, when I asked what is the distance between Hong Kong and China, why am I getting a stupid answer for a simple question? Why? Is it manipulation? Is it to confuse me? Is it to confuse someone who might be thinking similar thoughts as me, but is of lower intellectual quality, not because, for whatever reason? Um, I don't know. But you know, but let's get back to the One Belt, One Road. What China wants is the Japanese to stop getting so uppity about those islands and give them back to China and basically do whatever China wants. China would tell everybody what to do if they had the opportunity. And as I said, in particular with Hong Kong, there's not much defense. There's no such thing as deflector shields or anything like that. Yeah, they don't exist yet. So the whole Star Trek universe just sort of goes flying out the window at that point. But you know, the other countries around still have political sway and they're still a big giant thorn in China's side. I mean, they still have not claimed all of the South China Sea, even though they do get away with things. But they don't officially have it, and they still don't get everything they want. But yeah, and what they would want is the cheapest solution. What's going to cost them the least amount of money and the least amount of inconvenience? And that would be a straightforward port from, I believe Shanghai is the biggest port that is in Asia, I believe. Give me a second here. It's not Singapore. Singapore, I think, is like second. Where the frig did it go? My reference. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Shanghai is the biggest, Singapore, and then Shenzhen. So, I mean, Singapore is somewhat close to there, and, Shenzhen is not that far from Shanghai and all that sort of stuff. But, yeah, they don't really want to build roads and things like that up and through Asia Minor all the way to Eastern Europe. Perhaps they would have had WMDs not been so astronomically game changing as far as how warfare is um, influenced. Wars are not won by armies, so they can do all their little faggoty parades all they want, but that won't change anything. And as I said in another video about, how Hong Kong is very close to China, and they could detonate a WMD and destroy Hong Kong in a split second at any second, and the Hong Kongers will never know what hit them, or maybe they will know what hit them because they devised a hideous WMD for the purposes of propaganda, which kept them alive. That would be, kind of terrifying. But anyway, all the regional powers in the area would get fucking, pissed off, and then that would be World War III, and World War III would not last long. And that is not a very significant deterrent, if you want my opinion. It's like, oh, gee whiz, we'll come along and save you after you've been blown away. It's like, okay, well, that's not going to work out very good for me. As if you're speaking from a Hong Konger perspective, as a hypothetical. And um, you know, um, all that sort of stuff is spooky. But building those roads and having those shipping lanes, not that they're unimportant for gathering resources and things like that, but especially the roads that they plan on building, there's nothing there. The resources they want are in Africa. There won't be many resources to gather through Asia Minor and then into Eastern Europe that they can capitalize on. And, they'll have, as I said, big contention from the regional powers in the area. Because I'm sure the Russians, at some point in time, some of them put down the bottle of vodka and pay attention to what's going on a bit better than they did back in the 80s when they fucked up a few times. A lot of countries have this tendency to fuck up, and it looks really bad when they do. And it's very embarrassing, very, very fucking embarrassing. Because, Chinese Communist Party is actually not a very intelligent people. Like they know how to control people, and they know how to control others if they have the capability, but they don't have the capability. The Brits pulled down China's pants for 100 years, and they were an embarrassment for 100 years. So people go around, they don't understand. They go, "Oh, the Chinese are so much smarter because they can recite statistics, all the statistics that Ryan simply mentioned here." And he had to relook at them to do them. Well, guess what? This is about 20 minutes worth of research I did, and I discovered something significantly important that a lot of people don't quite understand or have the inclination to want to understand. And it's like, well, this is pretty damn important. Suppose one of these cities becomes like Vancouver because it's dominated by Hong Kong business interests, which are by proxy Chinese mainlander interests. Some of them are straight up Chinese mainlander interests. This could be the next Stalingrad. Obviously, it wouldn't be quite so dramatic as that. Having two slices of bread and 500 grams of fat to eat while you're freezing in a broken city, but the stakes are the same. Um, and a lot of people they don't understand that. They don't see things for what they really are because they're distracted by their the Game of Thrones season finale. They're distracted by the Toronto Raptors winning whatever the hell stupid cup that they win. I don't know. I don't watch basketball. Um, and the important things that are going on in the world, it's easy to lose focus because when you go to learn about them, you're only hearing the stupid version from people. You're hearing, the same humdrum, boring rhetoric every fucking time. And it's like, do I really want to listen to this or do I want to do something that I find interesting? And, quite often most people do. And I'm no different, but, I know it is important and I do pay attention. However, I don't sit there for hours on end watching conspiracy videos about how 9/11 was an inside job because jet fuel can't melt steel beams and all this other shit. And I made a video about that. I recommend you watch it. I thought it was quite good. Um, Thinking outside of the box. Are we allowed to do that around here? Are we allowed to fucking think out of the box around here? Um, so yeah, a lot of things going on. And I believe that the Chinese Communist Party is not getting their way. They're losing this, especially, well, this is the way how the story's been told to us. Uh, Governments have a tendency to either dilute or outright lie about horrifyingly bad losses. I mean, if it doesn't affect us immediately, there's no reason to tell us at all, really. The old adage, what they don't know won't hurt them. But I believe in a more open, understanding of what's going on in the world. Obviously, and the part of the reason this is not happening is because they're playing up going, oh, well, post-traumatic stress disorder, suicidal thoughts, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, shut up, you pansy. Absolute pansy. I mean, it's difficult to condition the mind. Uh, and in this day and age, they're out there who want to condition people's minds, that's for sure. Here I am minding my own business, and I still got people trying to manipulate me every fucking day. They do that to everyone, but they think they're gonna get me, but they're not. And I don't have to believe your version of events. Don't have to do that. There are plenty of people out there who get belligerent when you don't believe their sort of side of events, and it's one of them things that they simply don't listen to. But anyway, I've brought up the points that I wanted to bring up, and I will continue this subject because this route that I explained, if China did not have those obstacles in its way, it would be much cheaper for them than to send their crappy merchandise to Eastern Europe. So therefore, that is what they want. However, that's not how Western media is depicting the one road, one belt. Anyway, talk to people later. Have a good one.